One day, a little girl came up to Elon Musk and gave him a sandwich. 7 days later, something amazing happened. The sun hung low but brilliant in the clear blue Los Angeles sky, casting a warm glow across the bustling city streets. It was about 4 p.m., and the light was golden, spilling between the tall buildings and brightening everything with an almost cinematic clarity. Elon Musk walked through the downtown crowd with his hands buried deep in his jacket pockets and his head slightly down. It was a bright, beautiful day, but somehow the sunshine seemed to mock him. The sounds of the city, traffic humming, street vendors calling out, snippets of conversations drifting through the air, only seemed to deepen the emptiness he felt. His day had spiraled from one challenge to another, culminating in a significant setback that had left him feeling, for the first time in a long while, uncertain. A project that was falling behind schedule planted a seed of doubt, and as he walked, he could feel it starting to grow. Elon was no stranger to pressure. In fact, he thrived on it, building rockets, electric cars, and companies that sought to change the world. These were challenges he welcomed. Yet today felt different. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but something about the struggle, the endless race to stay ahead, felt hollow. He took in a deep breath, and as he exhaled, a small, involuntary sigh escaped him. He looked up briefly, noticing how the afternoon sunlight brought out vibrant colors in everything around him. The neon signs from local stores popped against the sunlit buildings, and street vendors selling tacos and churros seemed bathed in a radiant glow. A group of friends laughed loudly outside a coffee shop, their carefree joy seeming worlds away from his own somber thoughts. A couple walked by, holding hands, sharing an ice cream cone, blissfully unaware of the man passing them who carried the weight of so many expectations on his shoulders. As he continued walking, Elon found himself reflecting on the countless hours he poured into his work, the late nights, the endless meetings, the challenges that piled up one after another. It was a cycle he knew well. He was used to giving everything, pushing harder than anyone else. But in moments like these, he couldn't help but wonder, at what cost? For years, he had driven himself forward with a fierce vision, to change the world, to build a future that looked more like science fiction than reality. And he had succeeded in so many ways. Yet here he was, feeling as if he'd lost something along the way, something he couldn't name, but felt the absence of nonetheless. He felt a pang of loneliness, a reminder that, even with a team of thousands and millions of supporters, there was a solitude to this kind of ambition that was impossible to escape. As he walked, the air was filled with scents of street food wafting toward him from a nearby stand. Freshly grilled corn, fried churros, and the unmistakable aroma of tacos cooking on an open grill. Normally, he might have stopped to enjoy these simple pleasures, but today he barely noticed them. His mind was elsewhere, cycling through a list of what had gone wrong and how he might fix it. At a certain point, he reached an unassuming bench tucked near the corner of a quiet side street. Despite the bustle around him, the bench seemed to offer a tiny pocket of calm, and without thinking, he sank down onto it with his shoulders slumping as he allowed himself to rest for a moment. The sunlight filtered through a nearby tree, casting dappled shadows that danced over the bench and across his face. Elon took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin, but the peace it offered seemed fleeting, barely touching the gnawing unease within him. He leaned forward, with his elbows resting on his knees, and let the thoughts roam. Was this what he wanted his life to look like? He had accomplished so much, and yet here he was, sitting alone on a bench, feeling strangely empty. The vision he'd always chased, the future he'd dreamed of, felt more distant than ever. His thoughts turned to his family, his children. How many birthdays and ordinary moments had he missed in the pursuit of his work? The realization hit him with an almost physical force. He had built extraordinary things, but there were simple, everyday joys he had sacrificed in the process. As he sat there, lost in thought, the sounds of the world continued around him. A group of kids ran by, playing an impromptu game of tag. Their laughter rang out like bells in the warm air. A street musician nearby strummed a guitar, filling the space with a soft melody that mingled with the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. A breeze swept past, bringing with it the faint smell of fresh flowers from a nearby stall. It was the kind of perfect day that normally would lift anyone's spirits. But Elon barely noticed it, too wrapped up in the weight of his thoughts. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting his mind drift. Somewhere, deep down, he knew that he was at a crossroads. He could feel it, a quiet but persistent thought at the edge of his mind, as if life were offering him a moment to pause, to reassess, and for the first time in a long while, he felt that he might just take it. Just then, he heard the soft patter of small footsteps approaching him. He opened his eyes, blinking in the bright sunlight, and looked down to see a small figure standing in front of him. It was a little girl, maybe 3 years old, holding a sandwich in her tiny hands. She had big, curious eyes, and she gazed at him with an innocent, unabashed curiosity, as if she had no idea who he was, but sensed that he was in need of something. "Hi," she said, her voice soft and sweet. She held out the sandwich to him, a little hesitantly, but with the kind of unfiltered kindness that only a child could have. "Are you hungry?" Elon blinked, caught off guard. He looked at the sandwich in her outstretched hands, then back at her face, which was filled with a simple, genuine concern. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. The heaviness he'd been feeling seemed to lift, if only slightly, replaced by a warm, unexpected gratitude. "Yes, maybe I am," he replied softly, managing a small smile. He reached out, carefully taking the sandwich from her hands. "My mommy says people are happier when they eat something," she added, nodding as if this was a fact as simple and true as the sun shining above them. Her words were so innocent, so free of pretense, that Elon felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of uncomplicated warmth, a reminder of kindness that expected nothing in return. He looked down at the sandwich, then back at her. "Thank you," he said, with his voice thick with emotion he hadn't expected. "That's very kind of you." The little girl just smiled and walked away, as if she hadn't done anything out of the ordinary. And in that moment, sitting on a sunny bench with a sandwich in his hands and a small child standing before him, Elon felt the weight on his shoulders ease just a little. The world didn't seem quite so heavy, and he found himself seeing it, if only briefly, through the bright, unfiltered lens of her innocent kindness. But it was 7 days after this little girl gave a sandwich to Elon Musk that something amazing happened. A week had passed since the day her little girl had met Elon Musk, and for Olivia Harper, it had already become a story she told with a smile to friends and family. Her daughter, Sophia, was only 3 years old, but her innocent gesture had touched the heart of one of the world's most famous people. She'd seen Sophia offer her sandwich to him, watched Elon's surprised expression, and felt proud of her daughter's kindness. In a world that often felt indifferent and harsh, that simple act of generosity felt like a small victory. But beyond the sweet memory, life hadn't changed much. Olivia was still juggling her job as a receptionist with a mountain of bills that didn't seem to stop piling up. The stress of balancing a single mother's workload and financial pressures weighed heavily on her, but she tried to shield Sophia from it, keeping her focus on creating a stable, happy life for her daughter. Then one evening, she heard the TV anchor mention Elon Musk. She looked up, curious. The screen cut to a clip of him, sitting on a stage at what looked like a media event, and to her shock, he was talking about Sophia. "It was this little girl who just came up to me out of nowhere, offering me her sandwich," Elon said. "She saw that I was having a rough day and thought maybe I was hungry. She told me her mom said that people are happier when they eat. It's such a small thing, but it really hit me." Olivia stared at the screen. The interviewer asked him if he'd seen her since, and Elon shook his head. "No, I haven't, but I'd like to. If she and her mom are watching this, I'd really love to see them again. There's something I'd like to give her." For a moment, Olivia couldn't breathe. Was he really talking about Sophia? And what did he want to give her? She was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions: surprise, disbelief, and a hint of hope she tried to suppress. She thought about how Sophia had clung to her skirt that day, sandwich in hand, and approached Elon with such ease as if he were an ordinary person. Maybe, just maybe, he genuinely wanted to see her again. With her heart racing, Olivia searched for a contact form on Elon's official website and left a brief message explaining who she was and her contact information. She clicked send and waited, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. A part of her doubted anything would come of it. Elon Musk was a busy man, and there was no guarantee he'd even see her message. To her astonishment, her phone rang the very next day. A polite but efficient voice introduced herself as one of Elon Musk's assistants. After confirming that she was in fact Sophia's mother, the assistant explained that Elon would like to meet them both. A car would be sent to pick them up the following day. Olivia could hardly believe it. She sat Sophia down that evening and tried to explain as best she could. Sophia, of course, didn't really understand who Elon Musk was, but her eyes lit up when she remembered the sad man on the bench. "I made him feel better, right, Mommy?" she asked. "Yes, sweetie," Olivia replied, smiling and hugging her daughter close. "You really did." The following day, a sleek black car arrived at their modest apartment complex, turning a few heads as it pulled up to the curb. The driver, a polite man in a suit, opened the door and gestured for them to get in. Sophia's eyes were wide with excitement as they drove through the city, pointing out all the big buildings as they passed. Olivia, on the other hand, was nervous. Finally, they arrived at an elegant office building, modern and striking with glass walls that glinted in the sunlight. They were guided through the lobby and up to a private meeting room where Elon Musk was waiting. He stood up as they entered, smiling warmly as he approached them. "Sophia," he greeted, bending slightly to her level. "I'm so glad you came to see me again." Sophia grinned back, giving him a little wave before burying her face in Olivia's leg, overcome by a bit of shyness. Elon turned to Olivia, extending his hand. "Thank you both for coming. I know this is probably unexpected, but I wanted to meet you properly. Sophia's kindness really meant a lot to me." Olivia shook his hand, her voice almost catching as she replied, "Thank you. I mean, it was such a small thing she did, but I guess it's how she is." Elon smiled and nodded. "It wasn't small to me. I think that kind of kindness stays with you, and it got me thinking about what I could do to give back. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to do something that might make a difference in both of your lives." Olivia's heart began to race as she listened, uncertain of what he meant. "What do you mean?" she asked, glancing down at Sophia, who was now curiously looking up at Elon. "Well," Elon began, his expression thoughtful, "I understand that life isn't always easy, and my people did a little digging. I hope you don't mind. I know you aren't doing that well, and I'd like to help you get a fresh start." He paused as if choosing his words carefully. "It's not charity. Consider it an investment in kindness. I've arranged for a fund that will cover your debts and give you the freedom to create the life you want. You don't need to worry about repaying it. It's a gift. I hope it allows you both to live with a bit more peace and security." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. She tried to speak, to find the right words, but all she could do was whisper, "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you." Elon smiled, shaking his head. "No need to thank me. Sophia reminded me of something important. This is my way of honoring that. Besides," he added, looking down at Sophia with a grin, "she already gave me a sandwich." The room filled with soft laughter, and for a moment it was as if they were all just ordinary people brought together by a simple act of kindness. As they left the building, Olivia felt a sense of hope that had eluded her for so long. She knew they were on the brink of a new beginning, one made possible by the pure, uncomplicated kindness of her little girl. The world, she realized, could still surprise you in the most wonderful ways. Now, do you think that it was fate that brought them together? Do you know any heartwarming stories you'd like to share? If you do, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video.